The path to 444,000 deliveries, or maybe just production units, in Q1 of 2023. I'm Brian. Welcome to My Tesla Weekend. So the stock did a little bit of moving this week. Up $12 today. That's pretty good. Zoom out, 6% on the week. Not as exciting. 2% on the month. Uh-oh, now we're looking not as good. Oh, right. It's still a tough year. Zoom back in. Yeah, $12 today. That's pretty awesome. Bit of excitement around these delivery numbers, it would seem. So, big numbers. How did we get here? So let's take a look. I'm not going to do big reveals on these. So, looking at the models S and X, there's some questions there. How did we get here? Model S and X deliveries have resumed in China. Now, maybe this hasn't hit quite yet, but production appears to be steadily increasing quarter over quarter. I believe we can see a small increase from the previous quarter. I'm saying 12% more. This is the only number about which I feel overly optimistic. Fremont, 3 and Y. Well, you got to know Fremont is tapped out. Fremont can't possibly make any more vehicles. The factory just doesn't have any more space. But something interesting we learned on Investor Day was the work of the Magi of Shanghai, Tom Zhu, who came over and instantly improved Model Y. You can see his Model Y outputs. And instantly, in Q4, improved Model Y output in Shanghai, in Fremont, with fewer hours. He's bringing the magic of China to the factory there, and in ways that don't seem to be hurting. So that's why I'm confident we will see a small increase. I'm saying 3% over the previous record quarter. And remember, this quarter doesn't have the same holidays that we saw last quarter. It doesn't have a Thanksgiving or a Christmas. It really only has New Year's Day, which isn't really celebrated in factories the same way. More with a little overtime pay than with time off. They don't close down. Shanghai, this was the big question mark. Surely these numbers... Oh, Shanghai, well, they've got, Chinese New Year. That's a big holiday. There is a big shutdown. And a lot of the folks who gave early numbers 2-3 weeks ago were saying, oh, Shanghai's going to miss. It's going to make the whole quarter miss. And I kept saying, I don't see that. China's already at record domestic sales. And we know they've been exporting like crazy. That tells me this is going to be another big record in Shanghai. And if we look at the chart, these are good numbers. Tesla sales in China by month and quarter. Yeah. These are just the ones we know about. They don't include the last 3 days of the month. So there's a lot of room to grow. And I'm not counting a lot. I'm counting a little. 5% bump from the previous quarter. Things I've seen from the air have been inconclusive. I tried my trick of counting the cooling towers, and I was unsuccessful in reaching any meaningful conclusions. So this number is based just on the data from what we've seen in terms of Europe and China deliveries of Chinese-made models 3 and Y. So that gets us there. Now we got to ask, well, what's going on in Berlin? Brian, you're only showing 30,000 in Berlin. I had a question about this on Twitter and on Patreon. 30,000, that's got to be low. That's got to be low. We know they hit 4,000 early. We know they hit 5,000 a week by the end. Surely this should be 40, 50,000. And I'm saying it isn't. Because even though, we hit 4,000 in February, we hit 5,000 in March, very good. And by the way, if you go back and look at the Shanghai ramp rates, this is right in step with that. This is doing just what it should be doing. If you look at the announcements in Shanghai, when they opened, they had already hit 1,000 a week. Now, that wasn't their actual run rate. Those were burst rates. Those were tests. Those were, can we actually do it? They'd already demonstrated 280 a week but we need to see if we can actually hit 1,000, and they did. That didn't mean that quarter they hit 90,000. When they hit 2,000, 3,000, there we go, 3,000 in March. So by the end of the quarter, they should have had 100,000 sales. They didn't. These are burst rates. These are tests. Boy, it's so cute and quaint looking compared to what it is now. Oh, they grow up so fast. So it's kind of overly optimistic to count that number in a vacuum. So then we've got Texas, same story. I'm saying it's up 15% from last quarter. Now what's exciting is, in Texas they have hit a run rate of 3,000 a week, but that was a while back. That was in December. They're surely at 4,000 now, 4,000 plus I would guess. So they should be doing quite well, but we'll see. And again, that is probably a burst rate. We'll see. But they're saying that means they could do 150,000 cars. Now, why is that exciting? Well, this factory is meant for more than one model. We know it's meant for the Model Y and the Cybertruck. If they're doing 3,000, 4,000 a week, and I think at this point we're probably closer to 4 on a steady basis, but let's just say 3, it's 150,000 a year. That's from one line. If you look at Joe Techmeyer's videos from yesterday or today, they're putting in the second and third lines now. The capacity for Model Y is going to triple. So if they're at 4,000, that's 200,000 a year. That's 600,000 Models Y just from Giga Texas, to say nothing of the Cybertruck. And then we've got our good friend Semi. Zero. Why zero, Brian? Well, I do have a source at Giga Nevada, but I have not asked him what the number is. And I think he would have told me if it was something other than zero. I think the number is zero because we got some news here. A recall of 35 semis. It's a third-party component that manages the air brake system for basically the parking brake. The point is, all the trucks were affected, a total of 35. Digital Blade wants to know what happened to the 36th one. It might have been built, it might have been the first one built, and it might have had a different part. JJ wants to know, is Nikola the leader? So far, in electric semis, I believe they are by a substantial margin the leader, at least in production. I haven't seen sales figures, but so far, they're in good shape. I'm worried about their cash burn, and you should be too. So then we've got everybody else's estimates. Good old Gary. Gary says, Tesla's investor relations compiled Q1 consensus is 421,500 units. 421.5, right there. Let's make it bigger. 421.5. The median of 420, 487, almost nice. And a standard deviation of 16,000. So on this, these are deliveries, not production. So that means one standard deviation only gets us to 437, or as low as, what would that be, 405. Somebody's thinking they're only going to deliver 405. Really? And this is everybody. Baird, Barclays, Bernstein. I always thought it was Berenstain. Bank of America, Canaccord, the usual. Goldman Sachs, you know, the usual. These numbers are pretty goofy. Now, some of the other YouTube prognosticators, folks on Twitter and YouTube who do this thing that I also do, had some pretty pessimistic numbers prior to this week. I saw numbers as low as 418 for deliveries, and that would be interesting. And when I put out my number of 444, I mentioned it, I shared it on Tim's show, Oracle Investments, a week ago, week and a half, and I was the outlier. And now, magically, everybody else has kind of moved up to my numbers. So that's fun. It's fun. Oh, and these guys, they'd like to huddle in a little group. They like to do their own thing together as a group. So it's fun. And there are people who still look at folks who miss the estimates by wide margins and call them the prognosticators of the century. And they are not. There was a time early on when I believed having the best data would make me very successful. But I think the real problem is I'm just so beautiful, the message gets lost and it's distracting. But that's okay. That's okay. So we're going to get into the questions. Before we do, I did want to say tomorrow morning, there's a very special show. I've been working on this since the beginning of the channel, 2 years. And it's just so daunting. There's so much to it. Take over the world, 10 steps. I'm so excited. And this will be going on in the morning. There's a link in the description. There's a link in the chat. Who is this? Posted it earlier. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited about it. I'm like nervous. So we'll get into the Q&A where we discuss all the good stuff. I want to thank my patrons who get early access, bonus content, all that good stuff. Keep the channel going. And thank you to the super chats. Anthony, I appreciate that. I will get your... Well, there it is, and there you go. If you want to watch the complete 30-ish minute version, head on over to the second channel, My Tesla Live, where the whole thing goes out each Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, join in the conversation. Thanks as always to everyone else. Like, subscribe, do the usual thing, and stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots on the live channel.